Ross Atkins spoke out about the Blue Jays' struggles, and he held back a little bit, but there was one guy who did not hold back, and that was Kevin Gausman. He actually revealed that there may be some friction between the coaching staff and the players, and if that wasn't already obvious, it's pretty obvious now. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse, and Ross Atkins does what he does. He built this team. He's got to live with it. He's got to live with the results that he's gotten. But Kevin Gausman did not hold back in his presser yesterday, and I'm tired personally of seeing all the talk between all these players. I want to see some results. I want to see them go out on the field and actually get it done. But you do have to get yourself fired up, and you do have to acknowledge when you're not playing up to standard. You do have to acknowledge when there are things going on in the locker room, and I'm glad that Kevin Gausman, the Blue Jays' best player, is finally starting to address some of these things. And it's kind of worrisome as a fan because you could see that there's something not right with this group and that they're not firing on all cylinders and not exactly clicking on a personal level. But now this kind of just confirms it, and Nick, I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah, well, let's just get right into the news because there's a lot of it and some crazy stuff, especially on the Kevin Gausman front. Before we do, make sure that subscribe button. We're very, very close to 8,000. And let's start with the light stuff, which is Ross Atkins speaks out on the struggles. Now, this was before yesterday's game, and they did lose to the Guardians yesterday, but let's just gloss over that and pretend that didn't happen last night. So let's just get into the main thing. Now, the Atkins thing is, again, it's a lot shorter than the Gausman stuff. The Gausman stuff is a bit more, interesting, but Ross Atkins went on to say, there's a lot of things happening in our batted ball quality that's not playing out in scoring runs. I do believe that will turn. I still feel really good about this group. That's basically all he said throughout the most of the interview. I listened to it, and it's basically just him saying he has faith in the group. There's not one specific thing that the coaching staff is attempting to change, because they asked that question as well. I was thinking maybe pull the ball more, but he said there's not one thing that the coaching staff is asking them to change. So, Peter, any quick thoughts on this before we get into the Gausman stuff? It's about what you'd expect him to say. What is he supposed to say? The hitting is just not working.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what's the story of the
What's
season.
he supposed to say? Our offense sucks.
Yeah.
Our players suck. They're not performing. They're garbage. I got to get rid of them all. No, you can't. Now you're in too deep with this particular group that you have. Ross Atkins, I'll reiterate it again. I think he did a great job in the offseason. He did what he had to do. And the guys that he traded away haven't exactly been world beaters either. So it's just a bunch of guys that are underperforming. Who's that on ultimately? It's tough to say, but I would have to point to the coaching staff because they haven't done these guys any favors. The guys that came from other teams, they've done what they've had to do. They've contributed. They have basically been best case scenario apart from Dalton Varsho. And then you have other guys who are on the team who were in-house already who are underperforming severely. So I don't know what you want Ross Atkins to do in that scenario. Obviously, he's not going to go out and call out his team one by one individually. There's no point in doing that. There's no good that could come out of that either. So I'm okay with what Ross Atkins said. And I think there's going to be some major changes in the offseason. To see this team, it's clearly not working out for whatever reason. The talent is there, but something is just not clicking with this particular group of guys. So I expect some big time changes in the offseason, but it's hard with 30 something odd games left to go ahead and just clean house. It wouldn't make sense. You made your bed, now you got to sleep in it in a sense.
It's not, again, we say this. We don't think it's Ross Atkins' fault. I'm pointing to the players first and foremost, and then, of course, the coaches second as well. But, again, a quick update as well on Alec Manoah, in case you're interested. Not the number 6 starter right now. Hopefully he returns to that in the coming week. So that was just one other tidbit there. And, again, I don't think it's Ross Atkins' fault the hitters aren't hitting. The hitters are just, they're to blame, as well as the coaching staff, which let's get into that right now, which is Gausman reveals a locker room divide. And this is a bit of almost a bit of a scandal here in the sense of there's a lot to break down. So this first got tweeted out by just some random account, and a couple Blue Jays writers responded to it. And the top was, it's nice to see a player be honest about their frustration, especially when their contribution to the team is so great. In an interview with The Sun a few weeks back, he implied that unlike the O's, the Blue Jays neither embrace a game plan nor listen to their hitting coaches. Now, we had to do some digging to actually find where this interview, because it was a few weeks ago, and I'll leave it up to you guys to have your interpretation of if you think that's what he's saying or not. And Peter, I'll get your opinion on it as well. But this was the interview, so shout out to whoever dug this up. But he said, quote, "I mean, if I had an answer for you, we probably wouldn't be in this situation. Both the Orioles and the Bo Sox have a good amount of young guys that I think are okay with really diving into an approach and listening to a hitting coach and not trying to do too much. Maybe that's why. I don't know. We played really well against the Red Sox last year. They're probably gunning for us this year. I don't know." The big juicy bit here is that second paragraph, the middle one, where he said they have a bunch of young guys that are okay with diving into an approach and listening to their hitting coaches and not trying to do too much. And I think that this is maybe a bit of an indirect shot at some of the young guys that, because sometimes they certainly do try to do too much, and it's not just the young guys. You know, Matt Chapman as well at times tries to do too much, and they don't listen to their coaches. But Peter, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think Kevin Gausman was actually saying? Because I know some people on Twitter, if this is the case, then maybe I have to take back some of my blame towards the coaching staff if the young guys are being stubborn.
Well, we saw this article that came out, Nick, and we spoke about it off camera. It was Buck Martinez saying that there are too many voices in the heads of these young hitters, and particularly Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He hit a monster home run last night, but that should be happening a lot more frequently than once every 17 games. And he's one of the better young hitters in all of baseball. Maybe we overrated him a little bit after that 2021 season. Maybe he's not a 1,000 OPS guy, but he should be in the 900s. I don't think that's crazy to expect for him to have a 900 plus OPS on the season. So he's been really struggling. His OPS is under 800. And it could be a case of listening to too many different people. His uncle, Wilton Guerrero, is a big voice in his head that helps him out with his hitting when he's in a slump. He actually flew his uncle out to Toronto when he was having one of his early season slumps, and that helped him out a little bit there. Guillermo Martinez. Why do you need three hitting coaches? Why do you need Guillermo Martinez, Dave Hudgens, and Don Mattingly all feeding into your approach? Doesn't make sense. Why do you need a hitting strategist and a hitting coach? What's the difference there? So that's my problem. Like it's hard to listen when there's so many people that you have to listen to, and it's got to be weighing on these guys. They're hearing one thing from someone, they're hearing a different thing from someone else, and it's all just speculation now. But this has to be it, right? I mean, what else could be going on here?
Yeah, and we'll probably break that down in a future video as well, the full Buck Martinez thing, which was very, very interesting, an interview by him. But it's a good point, and Gausman, it's almost like not saying the opposite. It might be honestly saying the same thing. And again, the Jays might be hearing too many voices. I think them trying to do too much is, you know, a culmination of many things. When young players struggle and young hitters struggle, they naturally try to do too much. In offense in general, you'll naturally try to do too much. And then listening to a hitting coach, I'm sure there might be, you know, according to Gausman, some players who, you know, don't listen to hitting coaches as much. Vladdy in particular seems to be listening to hitting coaches maybe too much, like you said. So I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting. And again, let us know what you think about this, because I'm not entirely, you know, sure exactly what he's trying to say with this, but there's a lot of ways he can go about this. But any final thoughts on this, Peter? It's an interesting one, and who knows what Gausman was actually saying, but I think it's something about either a mix of the young guys being stubborn and maybe thinking that they know more than they should, and then maybe the hitting coaches for some players as well overworking some guys.
Well, one thing is for sure, it's that Kevin Gausman is really starting to show his frustration, and he's maybe reaching a breaking point here in this season, because he's someone that's very reserved, someone that doesn't tend to go out in the media and talk about his teammates.
And this was a couple weeks ago before his new one yesterday.
This was a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, yeah, he's definitely not a happy camper lately with his Toronto teammates. But who knows? Like, is he directing it at the coaching staff? Is he directing it at the players? He didn't exactly say.
It's for us to decide.
Kind of inferred that it was on the players, because he basically said that they don't listen to whoever is giving them information. But what if the coaches just aren't serious and aren't collaborating well with the players? I mean, we saw Dave Hudgens tweet 4 minutes before first pitch the other day. So we got to look at the whole story here, and I'm sure we're going to know all the details in the offseason when either players or coaches are shipped out of town.
Yeah, I think coaching staff. If anything, this alludes to the fact that, you know, I'm sure the coaching staff is doing their best to try to be as serious as possible, but I think ultimately something didn't click this season. Something's not working, and something is definitely going to change if they don't. I think something's going to change whether they make the playoffs or not, to be honest with you. But let us know what your thoughts are on that. Very, very juicy information there to Gausman. And he's been a guy, like you said, this was a couple weeks ago, and he went on to speak out again in yesterday or the day before his video. So he's not a happy camper right now. But a quick Ricky Tiedemann update to wrap up the video. I know we haven't spoke about him in a while, but it's a good way to just wrap this up. He's been struggling a little bit with his command since coming back. Last night was a bit of a rough one for Tiedemann. This was a few days ago here. 1 2/3, 3 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 3 Ks, 54 pitches. Command has not been Tiedemann's friend. Peter, really quick, any worries about this, or do you think he's going to be A-okay?
No worries. And the goal is not to get to the major leagues next year. Maybe it's a September call-up, but don't want to rush him. You know, he's one of the prized prospects in all of baseball, not just for the Blue Jays. So give him time, let him fully develop. He's so young, and you don't want to bring up a 21-year-old starting pitcher unless he's generational. So give him more time, let him really hone into his stuff, and let him be a contributor down the road. Don't have to rush him. So I'm okay. He's going to go through ebbs and flows in the minors, but it happens. Nothing to be worried about.
Yeah, and he had a dominant outing there, I think, last week or something. So there's going to be ups and downs in the minors. Nothing to worry about.
Just got to stay healthy. Just got to stay healthy. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, we've seen that with, Nate Pearson. Just health is the definitely the most important thing. With that, I'll wrap up the video. Tons of news in this one. This was a bit of a wild one. I'm curious to see what you guys think about Kevin Gausman's interesting quote from a couple weeks ago. And hopefully the Jays can win the series again and help with that tonight against the Guardians. Thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.